of the Swordfish and the Nimrod. Contemporaries from the first half of the 1930s. The Nimrod first flew in 1931, the Swordfish in 1934 in prototype form. Well, the Nimrod was long gone from frontline service by the time World War II broke out. The Swordfish, however, anything but, Colin.
Yes, it looks rather ancient by today's standards, doesn't it? But it was a very effective carrier aircraft. And in fact, the Swordfish attacked the Italian fleet in Taranto harbour, which was a precedent for the attack on Pearl Harbor by the Japanese. They obviously saw the effectiveness of attacking with torpedoes from aircraft. They basically followed the same plan in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
A 9-cylinder Bristol Pegasus radial engine of 750 horsepower powers the Swordfish. I say powers it, it propels it to a cruise speed, yes, of just 90 knots when lightly laden, and when fitted with the underslung torpedo, just 82 knots.
It looks so vulnerable, doesn't it? Lumbering through the sky as it is now.
And of course the crew very exposed in the cockpit. They were operating in some extremely harsh climates. They had no heater. The fuselage is merely fabric covered. Of course, it's an entirely open cockpit. They have hardly any weather protection up there. But what counted in the Swordfish's favour, apart from obviously the heroism of its crews from the Fleet Air Arm, was to some extent its slow speed, because it was very difficult for German naval guns to be trained on such a slow-moving target.
That's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? You'd think it would be easy to shoot from the sky.
And very, very manoeuvrable at those slow speeds with an extremely small turning radius. We mentioned the attack on the Bismarck in which Catalinas were involved. It was Swordfish from HMS Ark Royal which put a torpedo through the Bismarck's steering gear and enabled the home fleet to deliver the coup de grace.
It was almost the last torpedo, wasn't it? It was the last shot of the action, almost.
But in mentioning the heroism of Swordfish crews, you of course cannot ignore one of the less successful exploits. The Channel Dash 6 Swordfish attempted to stop the German ships the Prinz Eugen, the Scharnhorst and the Gneisenau in February 1942 from going up the English Channel from Brest to their home port at Wilhelmshaven. Those ships were incredibly heavily defended. All 6 of the Swordfish were shot down, but they nonetheless pressed home their attacks against incredibly heavy fire, and Lieutenant Commander Eugene Esmond, the commanding officer of the Swordfish involved, was a posthumous recipient of the Victoria Cross. Protection of the Atlantic and Arctic convoys, such a strong role for the Swordfish, often flying off MAC ships, merchant aircraft carriers, which were oilers or grain ships which would have a flat deck welded on top of the hull, a very small flight deck, from the like of which it had never been intended that Swordfish would ever operate, yet they did so, and they did so superbly.
And with limited instrumentation. Today we've got obviously GPS and all that kind of stuff. Well, they're going to be flying these aircraft in terrible conditions in the Atlantic or in the Channel or the North Sea. And if you can imagine yourself in that position, once you've taken off, you'd wonder if you'd ever find the aircraft carrier again.
The rear crewman saluting us all as the aircraft passes by there. Operating from the Mac ships, the Swordfish could achieve 4 hours endurance as well. As our radial engine formation gets airborne, with the Anson going off first, followed by the 2 Gladiators. And the Swordfish flying by for the final time above,
with a jaunty waggle of the wings.
During World War II, Swordfish managed to sink 21 enemy submarines, most of them on the North Russian Arctic convoy support missions. And of all Allied aircraft types, aircraft such as these, as you say, apparently lumbering and flimsy biplanes, sank the highest tonnage of enemy shipping.
Isn't so?